This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Sales of EVs in the U.S. are sinking. They've dropped for 2 months in a row and fell nearly 6% in May, which is based on the latest data from S&P Global Mobility. EV market share also dropped to 7.1% compared to 7.5% a year ago. While the Trump administration is doing almost everything that it can to eliminate subsidies for EVs, those cuts don't go into place until the end of September. So, sales are dropping even with the incentives in place. But the data also shows that almost all of that drop was caused by Tesla. Sales of non-Tesla EVs were flat. And one brand that is doing quite well is Cadillac. Its battery electric models accounted for 27% of its sales in the second quarter and hit 31% in June, or nearly 1 out of 3. Year to date, they're up 50%. And in fact, Cadillac is now the top traditional luxury brand when it comes to selling EVs in the US. And it's now outselling Audi in total sales, not with just EVs, which is quite a milestone for the brand. Mercedes does not break out its EV sales in the US anymore, but we do know that globally, they were down 18% in the second quarter. For a while there, it looked like Americans were starting to lose a bit of interest in pickup trucks. Well, that was then. So far this year, they're up 12%, the biggest gain of any segment, and it's a very active segment. In the first half, Ford sold more pickups than General Motors. While the S-Series is the perennial sales leader, GM always bragged that when you added Chevrolet and GMC sales together, it sold more pickups than Ford. Well, now Ford is in front. Even more shocking is that Toyota sold more pickups than Stellantis, which includes Ram and the Jeep Gladiator. And that also explains why Tim Kuniskis at Stellantis pushed so hard to get the Hemi V8 back into Ram pickups.
Developing today's vehicles, issues can happen in an instant. What good is knowing your problems without the data to solve them? Meet Wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure off-the-shelf solution, empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless Neovi Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
Which automaker do you think had the top-selling model in China in the first half of the year? No, it's not BYD, it's not Xiaomi, and it's not Tesla either. Give yourself a pat on the back if you said Geely, or more specifically, Xiaomi, a subsidiary of Geely, which was the only brand to top 200,000 sales in the first half of the year with an entry-level model called the Xingguan. In fact, entry-level models took 3 out of the top 4 spots, with the BYD Seagull at number 2 and the GM SAIC Hongguang Mini EV in 4th. Tesla was the only foreign automaker to crack the top 5, with the Model Y coming in at number 3. However, Volkswagen had 4 models in the top 20, Toyota had 2, and Nissan had 1. So while many foreign brands are getting hammered in the Chinese market, there's obviously still some appeal for their models with consumers. Mercedes' best-selling model, the GLC, is going all electric, and it will be fully revealed at the Munich Auto Show in September. Until then, it just put out a teaser video with company CEO Ola Källenius going over a few of the highlights. While he doesn't cover every aspect of the EV, he says it will accelerate like an AMG GT and can handle like a sports car thanks to an air suspension system that's similar to the one found in the S-Class. Total range is set to come in at over 650 kilometers, or about 400 miles, while fast charging of up to 320 kilowatts can add about 260 kilometers or 160 miles of range in 10 minutes. Mercedes shows the electric GLC towing an old 300 SEL from the late 60s or early 70s. And in fact, it will be able to tow up to 2.4 metric tons or roughly 5,300 pounds. And while it only shows it for a split second, it looks like the tow hitch can automatically extend and retract from just under the bumper. Lastly, Kalenius says the grille of that old S-Class will actually provide the inspiration for the front end of the new GLC EV. Earlier this week, Elon Musk said that Tesla will expand its Robotaxi service to San Francisco in the next month or two, but that it was waiting on regulatory approval. Well, that was news to regulators in California. A spokesperson from the California Department of Motor Vehicles told Reuters, quote, "To date, Tesla has not applied for a driverless testing or deployment permit. Tesla did receive the first in a series of permits that are required in March, which came from the California Public Utilities Commission. But the regulator says that it hasn't applied for any new ones since then. The permit it did receive is usually for chauffeur services, which allows it to own and control a fleet of vehicles and transport employees on prearranged trips." And while California says that Tesla hasn't applied for permits to launch its Robotaxi service, the Arizona Department of Transportation says Tesla contacted it last month to start the certification process. It has applied to test and operate both with and without a driver, and a decision is expected by the end of the month. And in other Tesla news, the EV maker is gearing up to launch in India. It will open its first showroom in Mumbai on Tuesday and open a second one in New Delhi by the end of the month. Customers will be able to configure and order a vehicle next week, and deliveries are expected to start at the end of August. An audit of China's EV subsidy program from 2016 to 2020 found that automakers were making claims they didn't actually qualify for. The Ministry of Industry and Information Technology says that the fraudulent claims totaled $121 million. Chery and BYD were the worst offenders. Chery applied for more than $33 million in subsidies for around 8,700 EVs and hybrids that didn't qualify. And BYD applied for nearly $20 million for about 4,900 cars that didn't qualify. It's not known if the automakers will have to return that money or what penalties that they'll face. Chery and BYD both didn't respond to requests for comment. Renault pulled the wraps off a new crossover that it first teased earlier this year that's designed specifically for international markets like Latin America. The Boreal fits into the C segment and will launch with a turbocharged 1.3-liter engine that makes up to 163 horsepower and is paired with a 6-speed DCT. But other engine and transmission combinations will be offered depending on the market. The interior layout is similar to other modern Renaults, with a couple of good-sized digital display screens, which includes Google built-in and OTA capabilities. Up to 24 safety and driver assistance systems add to the Boreal's tech appeal. It first launches in Brazil before the end of the year, followed by the rest of Latin America, Turkey, and other markets in 2026. Renault says its sales outside of Europe were up 16.4% in the first half of this year, and it's investing at least 3 billion euros to launch 8 new models for international markets, one of which is the Boreal. But that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for making Autoline a part of your day, and I hope that you have a great weekend.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Intrepid Control Systems. Over-the-air engineering boost your game. And by Wards is the industry leader for news, data, and analysis. That's why companies across the globe subscribe to our premium service, maybe even your own. Log in for subscriber access now. Check your company's intranet for details and rely on wardsauto.com to keep you informed.